Welcome to Design to the Nines. I'm Natalie Callahan, and today I have something so fun planned for you. We are doing 5 thrift flips in 5 designer thrifted outfits. I've partnered with ThredUp for this episode. I love ThredUp, and I'm going to tell you more about them in just a second. It's going to be a lot of fun, so let's get started. Okay, so we are going to be making over this caning chair in just a second. It's really in need of some help, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a second. But first I wanted to show you my first ThredUp outfit. This top is so cute. I love it. It's from the Limited. It normally retailed for $60. I got it on ThredUp for $13.99, such a steal. It's in like new condition. It's kind of like a satiny top. I love like the ruffles on the shoulders. And then my capris are Citizen of Humanity. I paid $35 for these. These normally retail for $200. Now, you'll have to tell me in the comment section below, is the white rule still a thing? And does it pertain to Florida? It's like warm here, summery weather all the time. And then these cute shoes are Kate Spade. They normally retail for $230. I would never spend that, which still is kind of a splurge for me, but these are in like new condition. I love a good wedge shoe. I feel so awkward modeling. Strike a pose. I'm actually going to be doing this in a guest bathroom. It's pretty hot and humid right now outside, so I want to avoid that as much as possible. But you'll notice this beautiful little piece here. This was such an awesome score. So I was driving to a store in another town, and on my way I kind of glanced to the side and I was like, what is that? And it was kind of like this architectural salvage. It looked a little bit like a junkyard, I'm not gonna lie, and I decided I really wanted to check it out. And I ended up getting 4 pieces that we're going to be doing on this episode from that location. It was a hidden treasure, so I was really excited. Well, I saw this upside down in a pile of chairs and stuff, like really high, but I could tell that it was really something special, so I wanted it. I didn't even realize this until I got it home, but I looked underneath and it's an Ethan Allen. I knew it had really good taste. So after removing the seat, we take some Briar Smoke gel stain, which I will link in the description box, and give the whole piece a good coat. One of the reasons I like this gel stain is because it's more opaque, making it a lot less work, and you don't need to necessarily sand down a piece like you would if you were using a regular stain. So I'm just a huge fan of gel stain. One note I would tell you is when you're getting around the edges of the caning, you might need to go back in with a little paintbrush to kind of get into those little nooks and crannies. Now, after we stain it, we're going to let it dry for a solid 24 hours. Then I really wanted to kind of give it that whitewashed effect that you've kind of seen on similar pieces recently. So I came back in and I mixed some clear wax with white chalk paint. In this case, I used the color called Plaster, which is slightly creamier in color. You don't need this much. I kind of overmixed, but I just wasn't sure. And you kind of mix in a 1-to-1 ratio. And then we just brush it on and then wipe it off until you're happy with the look. I left it a little thicker in those kind of carved out areas because I really felt like it made them stand out and you could see the design a little bit better. But just apply it in a way that makes you happy. And then while that is drying, we are going to work on the seat cushion. The first thing we want to do is we want to remove any of the piping, which was usually a little easier to do in this. And this is why I know Ethan Allen is a well-built piece, because I had a hard time getting off the piping, but I eventually did get it off. And then we're going to wrap it and recover it in a new fabric. Now, I really love that kind of linen look that you've been seeing on similar pieces like this. And I recently came across the most amazing painter's drop cloth off of Amazon, which I will link in my description box. But I've used a lot of different painter's drop cloths, and this is by far the best value for the money because the quality is so much more thick and beautiful looking. There's less seams in it, and just generally an overall higher quality feel to it. Now we are going to cut off a section and wrap the bottom seat in this fabric and just staple it into place. Now you can see how I go about this. You can see that I start from the middle, and you kind of work in a north, south, east, west kind of pattern, making sure that it's pulled out nice and smooth, but not like too tight, but tight enough. You don't want to pull too hard. And then once you have a staple on each center area, then you kind of work from the center out to the edges. And then when you get to the corner, you're going to staple in the corner first, and then you're going to kind of wrap it like you would a present. Now, if there's a lot of excess fabric, you want to get rid of some of that bulk, you can take your scissors and kind of cut away some of it prior to stapling, and that way it will just help it lay flatter. I hope that's all making sense. Personally thought that this seat was just too flat. Now I could have added extra batting and foam and made it a lot more cushy, but instead I thought it would look more high-end and be more comfortable if we added an additional cushion on top. So what I did is I took our seat and I used it as a pattern and traced around the outside with a fabric marker, and because of the thickness of the marker, it kind of added an additional 1/2 inch seam all the way around, and I doubled up the fabric and cut out 2 of these, one for like the top and one for the bottom. Then we need to add some thickness, so I also cut out a 4-inch strip, and I didn't actually really measure the length of this, but I made sure that there was plenty for an entire circumference of the cushion. And because the fabric tears so easily, I just do that, and it also helps it keep it very straight. And then I'm going to want to put on piping as well, so I also tear out 1 3/4 inch width strips for that. Now that we have everything cut, we are going to now make our cushion. Back in the day, I used to do my piping separately, but I found it's just as easy and a lot less time consuming if I just go ahead and sew the piping on at the same time as I'm sewing it into place. So you can do it in whatever order you like. This is just how I do it, and it saves me time. So I line up the edge of our piping fabric with the edge of our seat cushion, and I kind of stuff inside the piping and then wrap it around, as you see me doing here. Now we're going to leave about 1 inch of this piping unsewn, and you'll see why in just a second. And then we're gonna just start stitching this piping on all the way around. And then we're gonna stop a couple of inches before we're to the end and make sure our piping cord matches up. And then we can kind of cut off the cord where that is, and then we're gonna leave an excess of fabric of about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and then we're gonna kind of fold that down and kind of wrap it all together so it looks like one continuous piece of cording. Now I used to kind of just bend them out and kind of crisscross them at the end, but this looks so much more finished, and it's actually much easier to sew rather than trying to sew across double layer of crisscrossed cording. I hope that you can see what I'm doing here and that it all makes sense. Now that we have the piping on both pieces, we are going to connect them with that 4-inch center strip. Now you'll remember we didn't actually measure the length, and the reason is that I have had that backfire on me in the past, and I've accidentally cut it too short and thought it was going to be right. So I just make sure I have plenty, and then I start sewing it on to one side of the piece. And we're going to do it similar to kind of what we did with the piping, and leave a couple of inches and then start sewing a couple of inches down, and then we stitch all the way around one side until we get to the back, and we have a couple of inches on the other side as well. Then you're going to stop sewing at this point and kind of take some pins and pin where the seam should go in, and then sew that seam. Kind of open that seam out flat and then stitch that into place. and then it should be a perfect fit. For me, this is how I like to do it. Just like I said, I cut it too short in the past. I know it's kind of complicated to explain, but I hope that you can see what I'm doing here and that it all makes sense. The last part is probably the trickiest, but totally doable. The most important thing is taking the time to match up the corners so that everything aligns well. And typically I start with the outside corners first, and then I go to the middle, and then I use plenty of pins or clips in this case. And I love these clips more than the pins just because they are so easy to work with. Now this might take some adjusting, but you want to take the time to do this to make sure that everything is aligned up so that you save yourself some headache later. And then we are just going to sew around the majority of it, leaving an opening in the back so we can stuff in our cushion. And then we're going to stuff in our cushion, and in my case I just had an extra feather down pillow on hand that I thought would work perfectly because those feathers are so pliable and they can kind of fill in those little nooks and crannies. It actually worked out great. We added a lot of fluff, it's super soft, and then we're just going to pin or clip that seam closed, and then we're going to take it back to our sewing machine and use a stitch in the ditch technique, which is just kind of sewing extremely close to that seam line, almost so where you can't see and tell that it's there, but you do want to make ultra sure that you catch all of that fabric so it will stay closed. I love this technique because I didn't have a zipper handy, but you could totally add a zipper if you'd want to make it removable and wash it. But for me, I just thought it would be fine, and I typically use a steam cleaner to steam clean things like this anyways, but you do what works best for you. I absolutely adore how this chair turned out. I rescued this chair from the top of a pile of junk, literally, and I paid $35 for it, and then I probably have an additional $5 to $10 more in supplies. If you were to go into an Ethan Allen store today and buy a similar chair, you can expect that that would cost you around $1,500 to $2,000. And I don't think by revamping ours we've sacrificed really anything in quality in the end. I just love this end result, but I love the price even more. But what do you think? Did you know that ThredUp is the world's largest thrift store where you can save up to 90% off your retail prices? Plus, they have over 40,000 brands to choose from. They send their stuff in these adorable boxes wrapped in the cutest tissue paper. It's so cute, and it makes you feel like you're buying it from a boutique store, which you kind of are, and not a thrift store. It's an awesome experience. I loved it. Now, before we start our second DIY, I wanted to show you this top. This is a Worthington top, which I know is not like a high-end designer, but you wouldn't be able to tell. It normally retails for $40. I got it for $15.99. I love a good solid top that has a little something going on with it. I love this top, but what do you think of this one? So it's hot and humid right now, so we're going to try to do this as quick as possible, but we are going to be making I guess you could call it a coat rack, or you could hang your bags on it, whatever, or you can hang jewelry from it. It's a rack. I got these at the Habitat for Humanity Restore over a year ago, and I haven't done anything with them yet. And I've just kind of laid it out here to see how big we want to cut this piece of wood down. Mark that where we think, and then we're gonna make just a straight cut. Because I don't want this board plain, we're gonna put some trim around it, and this is just a 1x2 and from my scrap pile. We are gonna make a mark. And so the important thing here is that you want the sides to match and the long sides to match. You could do straight cuts, but I really think this will look nicer if we do miters. Now that we've got our 1x2s mitered, I'm just going to use a little wood glue and then my nail gun to attach it to our 1x6. Then we're going to give it a good sand down so that everything is nice and smooth and ready for stain. And then we are going to take that same Briar Smoke gel stain and give it a good coat. While that is drying, we're going to take those gold curtain tie backs that I found at the thrift store and spray paint them in an oil rubbed bronze spray paint. I also thought it would look really cool in a matte black spray paint as well, so you've got some options there. And then I also spray paint some screws to match. Once everything is dried, I just evenly space out our hooks and screw them into place. Once everything is all assembled, I took it back outside and did a clear top coat in a satin finish. Now, it's been a while since I bought these hooks, so I cannot remember the exact amount I paid for them, but they were pretty inexpensive. And then with some scrap wood and a little paint and a little stain, we have a beautiful piece that I can hang outfits on. There's a lot of functionality for something like this, and I hope it gets your wheels spinning for something that you could do similar. Not only is this piece very functional, but it's still beautiful in my opinion. But what do you think? Now it's time for our next thrift flip, and before that happens, another outfit. So this top is Ann Taylor, and it retails for $50, and I got it for $13.99. I'll put the right price up here, but look at this cute back. Now, it's actually just this coral piece that I got. I put a white top underneath it just because it's not my style to wear a tank top. I love Ann Taylor. I love getting Ann Taylor for way cheaper. This cute skirt from the Limited, it normally retails for $70. I got it for $9.99. It still had the tags on it. I love this outfit. This is definitely something you would see me wearing out and about on a summer day, and I just love this look. What do you think? So for our next thrift flip, I found like this slate cheese board or charcuterie board at that same kind of nasty place that I found that Ethan Allen chair. And I'm telling you, it was dirty. It was straight up disgusting. But we're gonna turn it into something special for my mom, who's happening to come here for Mother's Day. So the first thing I did was give it a good cleaning. Now the wood was very dry, so I just decided to stain it, and I used a darker gel stain this time. I used the color Kona. And when it was fully dry, I took it out and also gave it a good clear coat. Now, my mother loves charcuterie boards. She loves making these types of things, and she was coming in town for Mother's Day, so I decided to make this with her in mind. I decided to do something fun to customize the slate piece. Did you know that you can etch slate? How cool is that? So I made a custom stencil on my Cricut machine, and then I placed it onto my piece of slate. Then I used Armor Etch cream, and I generously applied it over the area we were etching, and then I let it sit for 15 minutes. Then we're gonna just wanna scrape off as much as you can with your foam brush, and then put the excess back into the jar, and you can reuse it on another project. Then any remaining that you weren't able to get off with your brush, you can just wipe off with a paper towel, and then take it to your sink. And you'll probably want to wear rubber gloves for this, but use some soap and water to wash off the final residue.
Now before I show you the slate piece, I decided to attach some handles to the wood part that I had picked up from Hobby Lobby to make it easier to carry. It also adds a little bit more interest too, in my opinion. Now I was gonna screw it on with a drill, but the screws I was using were a little too tiny, and so I had to do it by hand. But it really wasn't as bad as you would think. Now this piece had been clearly passed over many times based on how much dust was on it. But I bought it for $5, and our made-over version could easily sell for in the ballpark of around $40 or so, and it's so beautiful. Isn't this a great gift idea? So if you ever happen to come upon something like this covered in dust, just know that it might be a real diamond in the rough.
So now it's time for thrift flip number 4, but before we do so, this outfit right here is something you would see me out on date night with my husband this summer. It's so cute. It's made by a company called Eggs. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it normally retails for $120. I got it on ThredUp for $16.99, so it was a really good deal. I just paired it with some jewelry that I had on hand and these Cole Haan wedges that I already had in my closet. Now, if you like these wedges, I bet you could go look them up on ThredUp and find some that look just like it. I like your odds because they have a ton to choose from. So now it's time for thrift flip number 4, which is this candlestick that I found at that same thrift store. It was beautiful. I loved it, but there was only one, and I usually like to have them in sets of 2 or 3. And so I wanted to do something a little bit different, so we are gonna do an arrangement on top. This is pretty easy to put together, and you can use your own creativity on this. I will give you a couple of pointers that I think might be helpful. I start by attaching the piece of floral foam that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I hot glue mine into place with some Gorilla Glue, because if I really wanted to, I can pop it off later down the road. But you feel free to use some floral tape as well if you'd like. And then I just start out with some English ivy, and I want some pieces to kind of dangle and waterfall down in kind of a soft romantic way. And then I just use a mixture of a lot of greens and whites, and you want to make sure you have varying heights and varying textures, and that's what makes it really beautiful. And you kind of want to create an arrangement in a manner that you would see it in nature, and not something that is very stiff and perfect looking. There is a time and a place for those types of arrangements, but generally speaking, you just kind of want things to have some variation and variety in them. Now, I used a mixture of florals that I picked up from Michael's and the Dollar Tree, and this didn't take me long to assemble at all. It's just a fun, different idea of something that you can do with a random candlestick that doesn't have a mate. Or you could do this on one that does have a mate and have 2. I think I spent $7 on the candlestick itself and probably around $20 or so in florals. I can see this being really beautiful at a wedding or even just for your everyday decor. Time for thrift flip number 5 and thrifted outfit number 5. How many of you like Rachel Parcell? So cute. I like the way it fit on me. I love the kind of eyelet lace arms. This normally retails for around $71. I got it for $13.99 on ThredUp, and I love the savings. And so now I can say I own a Rachel Parcell, but I didn't pay a Rachel Parcell prices. And it's super cute. And again, I've just paired it with a black skirt and some fun earrings. I found this jewelry box at that thrift store. It had a really cool texture to it, but it was kind of dated. So we are gonna give it a cement look. Now this project is probably the easiest of them all. I saw this at the thrift shop and I thought the color was like a swamp-like green and not very attractive at all, but I loved the shape and the detailing on it, and I thought that we could give it a new life by giving it a faux concrete look.
We did this by painting it out in a warm gray color. Now when I put this first coat on of gray, I thought it was a little bit too light in color, so I went back in and mixed in a darker gray with the original color. And to be honest with you, I think I could have even gone a little darker than I did, but I decided to go with this. Now the secret to giving it that kind of faux concrete look is to very carefully dry brush on some white chalk paint. And sometimes when I was doing this, I felt like I got a little too heavy on the white chalk paint, and then I would just go back in with some of that darker gray color and just kind of keep playing around with it until I was happy with the look, and that's how you would do it as well. It's a very easy process, and it totally transformed the way this little jewelry box looks. I spent $5 on the jewelry box, and then with just a little touch of paint, it makes this piece into something so beautiful and that I would be happy to display in my bedroom or even possibly give as a gift. But what do you think?
So this is my mom. We'll call her Mama Bear. And I've got a present for her. You know what it is, but she doesn't. So we're gonna open that now. This is a little gift for my mom.
Oh, thank you. It's so beautifully wrapped.
Your favorite color.
My favorite color. All right. Oh, this is so pretty.
Okay, so this is one of my projects this week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Be careful, it does come apart, so just be careful with it. Just flip it. Do you know what it is? Charcuterie cheese board.
Oh, I love a charcuterie board.
That's what I've been telling
That
them.
is awesome. That is so beautiful. Bear established. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
Thank you, sweetheart. I love you.
Love you.
Now, don't forget to hit the link down in my description box and visit ThredUp for your 30% off your first purchase with them. They have designer brands. They're already deeply discounted, and you get an even greater discount using that link. It's like a no-brainer. I just love ThredUp. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, here's another one that I think you'll like as well. And if you haven't done so already, consider hitting that subscribe button right there. It's super easy to do, and I would love it if you would join the DIY Niner family. And to all of my DIY Niners, I just want to remind you that you are more powerful than you know. We'll see you next time. Bye.